Leon Godchaux was born in 1824 and immigrated from France to New Orleans prior to the Civil War. He started as a traveling peddler, traveling among the sugarcane plantations of southern Louisiana until he opened his own store. Later, he parlayed his success as a retailer into buying sugarcane plantations. And though he came from an impoverished background with very little education, he had lots of natural intelligence, good observational skills, and an ability to spot talent, and a never quit work ethic. With the help of his large family and loyal assistants, he became one of the richest and most important men in Louisiana of the second half of the 19th century. He died in 1899, but his large family continued running his retail and sugar business until the middle of the 20th century. During Leon Godchaux's early years peddling goods amongst the sugarcane plantations, he carefully listened and learned and eventually felt he could bring better efficiency to the sugar processing industry. He also used this period to make important contacts he would need later in his professional life. Beginning during the Civil War and using proceeds from his successful retail and clothing manufacturing businesses, he acquired his first plantation, La Reserve. See Bennett Wall's article for more information. Godchaux studied the techniques of sugar production and worked to improve them. He noted that each plantation was processing its own sugar, and this was inefficient. By the end of the war, he had bought several more plantations and improved their production. Godchaux's biggest and most profitable innovation was the development of a vertical organization for sugarcane production and refining by combining the processing for his growing number of sugarcane plantations. Previously, it had been a point of pride for each plantation owner to process his own cane into raw sugar. He added more efficient technology, such as increasing the number of cutters and crushers in his mill, and could soon manage all the cane his plantations grew, plus the cane of neighboring plantations as well. Meanwhile, trusted associates, some dating back to his earliest days in Louisiana, and family members managed his mercantile business and his clothing manufacturing business, and also his increasing number of commercial properties there in New Orleans. One of his biggest innovations at his plantation was the installation of rails and steam engines to move the cane to his mills. And while he was not the first to use steam engines in this way, he used it to great advantage on his plantations. The complex 36-inch narrow gauge system he installed in his Reserve Louisiana mill was not scrapped until 1958 when the mill changed hands. By then, there were 7 active steam engines, a Whitcomb switcher, and over 250 double-track cane cars and dozens of miles of trackage all across the plantation fields. He even went into the railroad business, founding the Sterling, Central, Franklin, and Abbeville Railroad, which ran from Franklin, Louisiana to Abbeville, Louisiana. This was a distance of about 44 miles through the heart of sugarcane country. An example of the increasing industrialization of the South in the late 1800s was his use of railroads. He was assisted in this railroad venture by a son who was a graduate of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Godchaux made sure that all of his sons went to first-rate schools and universities and then placed them in strategic positions in his companies. He wasn't scared to invest in the future of the family and the country. Godchaux battled all the natural and economic disasters of the late 19th century, which came along, including hurricanes. The worst hurricane of the 19th century was in October 1893, which hit the sugar cane plantation country pretty hard. There was the U.S. Coinage Act of 1873, see Milton Friedman's article on this. And in the same year, J. Cook and Company, a firm heavily invested in railroad construction, closed its doors on September 18, 1873. See Lure Bedkin's article on this. And a major economic panic swept across the nation in 1873. There was the price wars in the sugar industry in the late 1890s, which resulted in the American Sugar Refining Company controlling by April 1892 approximately 95% of the nation's refining capacity. And there's also increased imports from countries like Cuba, which against Godchaux had to compete. Godchaux continued adding to his sugar plantations and mills and finally incorporated his sugar and mercantile businesses into the firm of L. Godchaux Company Limited, with his 7 sons serving as directors and he as president and executive officer. The company lasted until the 1950s as various divisions were sold off and family members died or moved into other industries. And you can see Laura Westbrook's article for more information on this. In 1892, the New York Times, in a piece on American millionaires, listed Leon Godchaux on the section for Louisiana. However, the article was how protective tariffs had helped these millionaires make their money and was not meant to be flattering. The 1902 edition of the New York World Almanac listed the estate of Leon Godchaux as worth $1 million or more. Godchaux having died on May 18, 1899 at the age of 75.